Have you ever wondered whether happiness has a price or not?
Okay.
It is a question that has bothered men for all ages, because as far as happiness is concerned, for many, it is proportional to a person's wealth. Let us take a deep dive into this topic because it needs to be addressed in its entirety. Every element of our lives is impacted by money.
Yeah, boy.
Including where we choose to live, what we do, where we attend school, and what we eat. We can avoid dealing with problems like unstable housing or difficulty paying for healthcare when we have money. Though I discovered that the correlation between wealth and happiness is pretty complex when I delved into the studies on the topic. Even psychologists seem to be unable to agree on how money affects people's well-being and happiness. I did discover, though, that having more money only sometimes translates into more happiness. According to Harvard Business Administration professor John Yakimowicz, the main advantage of having more money is that it acts as a safety net in case bad things happen. For instance, you can quickly pay the bill if a medical emergency strikes or order takeout if you don't have time to prepare. Money is not just a way that people can buy themselves happy moments, it is also a crucial tool for safety, security, and stability, says Yakimowicz. Money can help soften the blow of bad times. A lack of money can make benign things much more distressing and painful. According to a prior study by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, people's perception of well-being peaked at a salary of at least $75,000. However, further researchers refuted this idea, finding no leveling off effect at that salary. To put it another way, even if you earn more than $75,000 a year, your happiness rises with your income. In their studies, Kahneman and Deaton looked at people's evaluative well-being to determine how happy they were. People are prompted to assess their sentiments after an event has occurred, in this happiness test. But finding a job that pays a lot more won't guarantee you'll be happier either. Killingsworth's research indicates that earning more money impacts happiness. Still, the size of that effect is tiny for those with high salaries, according to Laurie Santos, a Yale psychology professor and host of the podcast The Happiness Lab. She contends that exercising and keeping a gratitude book has a greater impact on people's happiness than attempting to earn much more money. Again, I think our intuitions are wrong. It might be that if we worked on our mental health and burnout, we'd perform better at work, and this might lead to more positive outcomes in terms of our job success and salary, says Santos. Indeed, numerous research supports the notion that a better salary precedes happiness, pleasant feelings, and cheer, not the other way around. This implies that those who are happier and more upbeat, who have optimistic views of the future, are more likely to perform better at work and, as a result, earn a higher income. Regardless of your income level, evaluating your financial situation will help you determine whether you can attain your financial and personal objectives, such as home ownership or regular trips, with your existing income. If you can afford it, think about working with a professional financial planner to help you figure out what's essential to you and how to achieve your financial objectives. If you can't afford to engage a financial advisor, consider making a budget and keeping track of your spending. You may learn how much money you're spending and what you're spending it on by using apps like Mint and YNAB. You'll have a better understanding of where your money is going due to this approach, and you'll be able to relocate it to activities that will make you much happier. Because people's income and expenses change from month to month, budgets can only work for some time. But they can be helpful tools to control consumption over time. To maintain your quality of life, whether you're retired or in your 20s, budgeting can help you understand how to balance periods of higher expenditure with periods of lower spending. A study released on Monday in the journal PNAS examined what would happen if 200 people were given a $10,000 lump amount. The funds from two wealthy anonymous contributors were dispersed via PayPal in collaboration with the non-profit TED. All funds received by participants have to be used up within 3 months. They kept monthly records of their happiness, just like a control group of 100 individuals who received no compensation. By asking participants to rate their level of life satisfaction on a range from 1 to 7, as well as how frequently they felt happy or sad on a scale from 1 to 5, the researchers could determine how happy people were. After 3 months of spending, the group that received the $10,000 reported feeling happier than the group that did not. After another 3 months, the receivers reported higher happiness levels than before the experiment began. However, those whose household income was over $123,000 did not report observable happiness increases. The participants kept track of their financial transactions, but the researchers are still reviewing the information to determine whether purchases generated the most enjoyment. Participants in the study were from 4 high-income nations: Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States, as well as 3 low-income countries: Brazil, Indonesia, and Kenya. According to the results, participants from low-income nations experienced 3 times more happiness than individuals from high-income ones, and those who made $10,000 a year reported being twice as happy as those who made $100,000 a year. $10,000 in certain places around the world can buy you a lot, said Ryan Dwyer, a co-author of the study who conducted the research as a PhD student at the University of British Columbia. Some people spent much of the money paying down their mortgage or doing big renovation on their house. At first, the study participants had no idea what they were enrolling in. A mystery experiment that would be exciting, surprising, somewhat time-consuming, sometimes stressful, but also potentially life-changing, was advertised by TED on Twitter in December 2020. A select group received emails a few months later informing them that they would receive $10,000. Dwyer said he thinks higher sums, closer to the recent $2.04 billion Powerball lottery jackpot, would yield even bigger boosts in happiness. Typically, people who win the lottery are happier many years later, he said. Research in 2019 found that the big lottery wins increased people's life satisfaction. A 2007 study concluded that people who won up to $200,000 from the lottery had better psychological health than those who did not win. The findings contradicted earlier research that suggested winning the lottery did not have much effect on happiness. There is still disagreement among scientists over the question of whether money can bring happiness, according to Harvard University behavioral scientist Anya Jaroszewicz. Jaroszewicz conducted an experiment where 5,000 Americans with modest incomes received one-time payments of either $500 or $2,000 each. Up to 15 weeks after receiving the money, neither group indicated that their financial or psychological well-being had improved. There is a lot of mixed research, and a lot of it does depend on the specifics of how much you're giving, who you're giving it to, what measures exactly you're using, and so forth, she said. According to a well-known study released in 2010, emotional well-being increased as income increased for people earning up to $75,000. A 2020 study, however, discovered that there was no such limit and that persons earning $80,000 or more annually reported happier and fewer negative emotions as their salaries increased. According to Dwyer, some of the happiness that participants in his study reported may have resulted from their initial exhilaration and the emotion, probably decades slowly over time if they're not receiving any additional revenue. These experimental projects have mainly targeted low-income, jobless or homeless individuals. For instance, individuals received $500 monthly stipends as part of a city-led trial in Stockton, California. After a year, participants who were required to reside in communities with median household incomes of $46,000 or less reported improvements in their mental well-being, drops in anxiety and depression, and increases in full-time work. Gratitude exercises, adequate rest, exercise, and quality time with loved ones all enhance our well-being and sense of satisfaction. If you believe that obtaining a higher paying position is the path to happiness, you might need clarification. Being happier can influence your work, how much you're paid, and ultimately your position in a company. What can we conclude from all this research then? The ability to pay for necessities like housing, food, transportation, and medical costs depends on having enough money. But it's just one of the many things that determine our pleasure.